Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Sean Huggins and this is Europe with Hugs. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are checking out EU-US Trade War 2.0. Oh baby. This is from EU Made Simple. Link to the original video down in the description as always. But let's waste no more time yapping and hop straight into it and see what's going on here. Here we go.
This video is sponsored by Ground News. It's all look done and dusted. A shiny new trade agreement between the US and the EU, agreed just a couple of weeks ago. Von der Leyen even made a little pilgrimage to Donald Trump, shook his hand, and for a moment it seemed like the deal, which to be honest is pretty terrible for Europe, was a wrap. Well, not quite. Because here's the thing, no one in Europe actually seems happy with it. Many national capitals definitely aren't. The European Parliament definitely isn't. And the media, they've pretty much stamped it with a giant red massive L. We even made an entire video on it, pointing out exactly how this deal tilts heavily in favor of the US. But of course, Trump being Trump, he's not finished either. He's already dangling the tariff stick once again, threatening to hike them up to 35% if Europe dares to regulate big tech. So in this video, we'll quickly unpack the deal itself, check where it actually stands, and go over what could still, likely even, go wrong. Alright, quick refresher. What is this so-called trade framework actually about? It basically comes down to two pillars. Pillar 1. Tariffs. Starting with steel and aluminium, tariffs stay at 50% on all EU goods going into the US. There's some vague talk about tariff-free quotas, but nothing concrete. For everything else, the US sets a single tariff ceiling of 15% on EU goods. That does mean car tariffs drop from about 27.5% to 15%. Yay for Germany's struggling economy, I guess. Because let's be honest, 15% is still very high and way worse than before Trump came into office. There are some exceptions though, called strategic products, like EU aircraft and aircraft parts, certain chemicals, and natural resources will go back to pre-January levels. In return though, the EU will scrap the already low duties on US industrial products. It'll also grant better market access for some US fishery products and 7.5 billion euros worth of US agricultural export.
Seems pretty one-sided so far.
Then there's the second pillar, investment. And this one is pretty big.
Hold on.
The EU is expected to buy around 700 billion euros worth of US energy products over the next 3 years. On top of that, 34 billion euros in AI chips, and EU companies are expected to invest at least 540 billion euros in the US by 2029. And this is my absolute favorite part. The EU's official documentation calls this promoting and facilitating mutual investments on both sides of the Atlantic. Mutual? Both sides? Really? Because I don't see a word about US investment into Europe. Let's recap. We lower our trade barriers even more, make massive investments across the Atlantic, and in return, we get a shiny 15% tariff wall. Seems like a fair deal, though. Well, I'm not the only one complaining. It wasn't exactly welcomed in all of Europe's capitals either, with France leading the charge. Prime Minister François Bayrou called it a dark day when an alliance of free peoples resigns itself to submission. And then Trump did what Trump always does. He threw a big dose of uncertainty into the mix. Within a week of signing, he was already back to threatening Europe with 35 tariffs on all goods. Why? Because of that 540 billion euro in investments European companies are supposed to make in the US. Because the EU can't actually force private companies to invest abroad. And the moment that Brussels admitted that, Trump was right back waving the tariff stick. And if that wasn't enough, just a month later, he was already threatening substantial new tariffs and even chip restrictions on countries with digital taxes. Which of course hits Europe directly, since the EU has some of the strongest digital rules anywhere in the world. So yeah, Trump is already threatening to derail the trade deal over two big issues. And the second one, tech regulation, is the real sticking point. Because the EU isn't backing down. Brussels keeps saying that it has the sovereign right to regulate tech, no matter what Trump or Washington thinks. And this matters, because the EU has massive pieces of digital legislation that Washington absolutely hates. For example, the DSA. This is all about online platforms and how they handle content. It forces companies like X, TikTok, or YouTube to actually remove illegal material quickly and be transparent about their algorithms. Or the DMA. This one is aimed squarely at the tech giants, or as Brussels calls them, gatekeepers. It forces companies like Apple, Google, and Meta to play fair and stop crushing smaller competitors. For example, Apple now has to allow third-party app stores on iPhones in Europe. And these two regulations have already been in action earlier this year with major fines. Apple, 500 million euros, Meta, 200 million euros. The message is clear. The DMA is here to stay, and it's actually being applied. And the country leading the charge here once again, France. President Macron has already warned that if Trump keeps threatening tariffs over tech regulation and digital taxes, the EU should be ready to hit back. This time, really targeting the US digital sector. But it's not just Paris making noise. The US-EU deal still isn't a done deal inside the EU itself.
I thought that it was a done deal, but I guess not.
It needs approval from two places. The Council of the EU, where all 27 governments, including France, have a say, and the European Parliament, which must sign off on scrapping duties on US industrial goods, more access for American fishery products, and those non-sensitive agricultural exports. And so far, neither of these institutions have given their approval.
Sheesh.
French MEP Marie-Pierre Vedrenne admits that the parliament is
French names are so fun to say.
very divided, with some lawmakers calling for outright rejection. And remember, this joint EU-US statement is non-binding. Trump can reinterpret it, or just simply ignore it. So we end up with four possible outcomes. Macron convinces other European capitals and shoots it down in the Council of the EU, resulting in, well, a trade war. Or the European Parliament shoots it down. Or Trump just does his Trump thing and walks away from the deal anyway. Or everything is rosy and goes on as agreed. Which one do you think will happen? Because this is what I think. Frankly, Europe is holding one terrible card. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Because of it, we're so dependent on the US, militarily, politically, and economically, that it bleeds into every other part of the transatlantic relationship. It's basically the ultimate Trump card he can always play. If Europe dares to push too hard in a trade war, Trump doesn't just have the power to hit our economy. He can threaten to pull, or at least weaken, American military and intelligence support for Ukraine. And sadly, these issues are all connected. Trump knows this, and he'll use it to his advantage. Which is why I don't think this trade war is anywhere near over. It's leverage he can bring up again and again and again on whatever issue he wants. Europe needs to move so much faster on reducing dependency. That means pushing trade deals with India, Mercosur, and Indonesia, building up our own military, and investing in chips and energy production here at home. But honestly, I am already worried about the amount of energy we are planning to buy from the US. Are we just swapping one dependency, Russian energy, for another, American energy? What I'd really love to see is a clear roadmap. Let's call it Europe 2035. A sovereignty plan that every capital gets behind. A plan that says, this is how we stand on our own 2 feet by 2035. Draghi seems to be doing exactly that. But our actual leaders in power, that kind of vision, still feels a little far away. Thank you so much for watching.
Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, I think that one thing that we have learned over the past however many years is that Trump is just going to be Trump. And you just, nothing that he says is trustworthy, and no deal that he makes is set in stone, and he will always just do whatever he wants. So, I don't even know why there's deals being made with him to begin with. It seems like a complete waste of time. But then again, I guess that's why I'm not a politician. So I don't know. I'm curious what you guys have to say about it, though, since you are most likely European if you're watching this. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on the European Union and the United States trade deal? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And when you're done there, consider subscribing, leaving a like on the video, all of that good stuff. It's quick, easy, free, and it really helps the channel a lot. So thank you in advance. But that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.